Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Rando Geek. Looks like we finally have an update as to the possible cause of the AT&T outage that took place February 22nd, 2024. AT&T was experiencing an outage the entire day pretty much. Most consumers started to get service back later in the day. I don't believe there's anyone that's really reporting an issue now. I think most customers are back up to service. If you are still having an issue, I would recommend rebooting your phone, taking the SIM out, try troubleshooting with your device a little bit, see if that restores it. And if you can, try to contact customer service for AT&T from a different phone if you have another phone to use. Otherwise, you should be good to go according to most news outlets and reports that we're seeing now at this time. So the reason for this outage, they're blaming on a server migration issue. Whether or not this is true, we'll most likely find out. There is definitely going to be an investigation into this because of the criticalness of the situation, how many customers were impacted. It's a very, very large amount of customers, definitely in the high hundreds of thousands, I want to say. AT&T has millions and millions of customers. This is a nationwide outage. So they have not disclosed how many customers are impacted because they don't want to let us know how severe the situation actually was. But that information will get released at some point. We'll find out, and we'll then know just how bad it really was. So reports of this information, the outage surfaced around 9 a.m. Down Detector started releasing reports of issues, but apparently it started as early as 4 a.m. Some customers are saying that they woke up 3 a.m., basically flooded Down Detector, and by 9 a.m. it was just pretty much confirmed that there was an outage. Of course, the news media started picking it up, etc., and we found out that it was, AT&T, FirstNet, MVNOs were also impacted by this, AT&T MVNOs. What was really scary is that we were hearing reports that AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, US Cellular, some customers on Dish Network, all reporting an outage at the same time. So we were thinking we're looking at some massive wireless cyber attack, which is really bad, right? Not just one company having a problem, but all of them. So what do you do? Everybody's impacted. This is scary. Turns out that that's not the case. Every other company would seem to have been working fine. It was just AT&T that had the outage, and all the reports that were surfacing about T-Mobile, Verizon, US Cellular, Dish, etc., were just as a result of customers trying to reach out to AT&T customers, those calls just not working correctly. So misinformation being reported about their services having an outage when they all got, on social media and reported to news outlets that was not the case, that their services are working fine. I didn't experience any issue with Verizon or T-Mobile, during the time frame of AT&T's outage. So if indeed this was a server migration issue, we'll find out. If indeed it was a cyber attack or a hack, whether coming from an internal source or an external source, we will find out. Investigation will certainly be underway because of the criticalness and how many customers were impacted by this. Many consumers were left without service, and for many consumers, that was a big deal because many consumers may have needed their phone for whatever reason. Maybe they were expecting phone calls from someone important, could have been an employer, could have been a potential job opportunity that may now have been missed because they were unable to get the call. Could be something worse. So, when something like this happens, people are impacted, and sometimes it's not a big deal because, the customer has multiple lines that they can rely on, multiple carriers that they can rely on, but not everybody is like us. Not everybody has 4 or 5 phones, 4 or 5 carriers. Most consumers have one phone, one carrier. It's not eSIM compatible. So they just got that one SIM card in there, happens to be AT&T, and they were out of luck. Their service was down for the day, and that's just how it went for them. So it is critical, you know. What's also critical is that FirstNet was impacted by this, and FirstNet is all about the first responders. So there's a lot of first responders that were having difficulties doing their job. Now, I believe FirstNet was one of the first services from AT&T to go back up. That's my understanding. But I think that they definitely need to look into FirstNet and make sure that that doesn't happen again because of the criticalness of the service and how many people are depending on it, the first responders and the consumers that benefit from first responders getting to them, getting the call. So there's a lot of lives that are at stake here, a lot of jobs that are at stake. So hopefully they'll take a look into FirstNet and make sure that FirstNet is not impacted by this again, as well as their consumers. Their consumers should not be impacted by this as well. If it was indeed a server migration issue, they need to tighten things up there and make sure that it doesn't happen again. If indeed we find out it's a cyber attack or a hack, they definitely need to step up and make security tighter. Again, we'll find out whether or not this happened. One of my biggest complaints is how AT&T went ahead and handled this. I think they could have done a much better job. First, I think they were late to the party with actually acknowledging the issue and reaching out to consumers that have their service. I think they took way too long. And I don't think the message was very clear or consoling to their customers. I think there was no comfort in the message at all. It was very little to no information, and it wasn't clear. AT&T posted a message. I originally saw it on Twitter, aka X, and the message went, "Some of our customers are experiencing wireless service interruptions. We are working urgently to restore service to all who are impacted." And then there's a link for the latest information you can visit to get updates about the outage. So I think whoever is in charge of their social media and their spokespeople that speak publicly regarding severe issues like this need to have a word with. I don't think this was very sincere. I don't think it was communicative enough for customers that were without service for hours and hours and hours. They're finally starting to hear from the company they're having a problem with long after everyone else has already told them about the situation. And I mean media, as well as everyday people taking to social media platforms and releasing statements and messages about their feelings and their difficulty of a day that they're having because they don't have service. Their social media team should have been on top of this. And then when a statement finally was made, it should have been a lot better than this. There should have been some kind of sincerity in it. There should have been a little bit more information as to what they think the situation might be, even if they're not really sure. They could have done better. Put it like this, and they should have done it a lot earlier. They should not have waited so long. Now, perhaps they waited so long because they weren't really sure what happened. Well, they didn't really say much in the statement either, so they could have just done something a little bit better than this. I don't know. For me, I'm not a fan of how it happened, how they went about this. Now, as far as the actual situation, these things do happen. Unfortunately, it's just something that you have to deal with everyday technology. It happens with T-Mobile. They have outages all the time. Verizon has outages all the time. This is a very severe outage. Many, many customers impacted by this could be in the millions. We don't really know. We're just hearing reports, from the customers that are actually saying something. There may be many customers that couldn't have reported it. They only have that one phone and they have no other way to get connected to a social media platform and speak about it. So, that's why I say this can update. So not a fan of how it happened. Understand that it does happen, but they need to do better. Now, what's really interesting is that a lot of customers, I guess, were trying to reach the fire department. There was a story about some customers trying to reach a fire department, and the fire department recommended that they contact them using a landline. I think they were trying to send an SOS. There was some kind of message or something going through, and they're like, "Oh, call us from a landline." And the customer didn't have a landline because most consumers do not have landlines anymore. It's 2024. Now, this could be a problem. This may be something that changes now, where companies like AT&T that want to leave the landline business may be forced to stay in the landline business simply because of this. Now, in this case, if you don't have a landline, you're basically, if service was down all day or longer, you would have to look at all other alternatives. You would have to go to another carrier. But if it was really so much bigger than this, and it wasn't just AT&T, and it was multiple carriers, you would have no service. You would have no way to communicate with anybody. As far as cell phone service goes, you can obviously send an email, through your internet, your computer, your laptop, whatever. But as far as cell phone service, you'd be out, right? All the carriers would be down if this was a global attack. This was an attack on all carriers. So I think that whole policy here might change. AT&T trying to get out of the landline business, which we talked about here in this channel, where they're starting with California, but that will transpire into something bigger if it is indeed approved. I think especially since what just happened, and being that AT&T is the one requesting it to get out of the landline service after just what happened, I don't know what their chances of getting that approved are now. I think it's pretty slim to none, and as it should be. I think that we shouldn't get rid of landline service simply because of that reason. There are a lot of customers that, even with cell phone service working regularly, they're just not in good spots. It's not secure enough for them. That, they have to walk around with landline services. And to take that away from them when, wireless service isn't the best for them, it's just not safe. And it's just not safe, period. I think we should still have that option to get landline service if we want it. And it's probably a smart idea to just kind of have something like Magic Jack or something just laying around. This way, if something does go wrong, at least we have some kind of way to communicate with our phones. So that's just my 2 cents. I think AT&T could have done a better job communicating, and we'll find out what this cause really was all about. I'm sure at some point we'll get more updates, and we'll talk about it again, especially if it's more than just a server migration. We'll definitely chat about it again. As always, thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.